The Florida State Administrative Building looked like any other government facility: frosted glass, aging concrete pillars, and a lawn trimmed so short it bordered on depressing. But that morning, what made it different was the black man standing alone in the parking lot. Darius Langston, crisp white shirt, high-waisted gray slacks, polished leather shoes catching the early sun. He held a slim leather briefcase, eyes occasionally checking his watch. He was early, always was. He didn't believe in being late, especially not today. This morning wasn't just about attending a meeting. It was about watching who was still worthy of sitting at the table inside Florida's chain of command. He waited, patiently, quietly. That was always his strategy. Until the patrol SUV pulled up to the curb. Doors swung open. Out stepped two uniformed officers, Miller and Rojas. Miller's eyes scanned him the way someone checks a package label. Rojas walked up, no greeting, no courtesy. "What are you doing here, delivering documents?" Darius replied. "I have a scheduled meeting." "With who? The State Ethics Audit Committee?" "No gate pass." "They're sending someone to escort me. Not gonna happen." Miller said, "This area is not for civilians, just wandering around." "Wandering?" Darius raised an eyebrow. "I'm standing, on time. Waiting for an official contact. No pass, no invitation, no waiting." Rojas cut in. Then, no hesitation, Rojas yanked the briefcase from Darius's hand, unzipped it, and began rummaging through the contents. Darius took a half step back. "I'm not refusing inspection," he said calmly. "But you're overstepping." Miller didn't respond. Or maybe he didn't want to hear. He spun Darius around, slammed him onto the patrol SUV's hood, and locked the cuffs tight. "We are the limit," Miller hissed through his teeth. The briefcase dropped, spilling open. A rigid ID card slipped from a folder pocket, skidding across the sidewalk and flipping face up. It read Federal Investigative Oversight Clearance Level 2. Access Langston. Darius. Code 17488E. Rojas bent down and picked it up, glancing at it with a crooked smile. "Oh, look, he brought his little federal toy." Miller stepped over the card heel, pressing down on it just enough to make a point. "If you're federal, then I'm the damn president." Darius didn't struggle, didn't flinch, didn't even smirk. He said just one sentence soft enough to float beneath the morning wind. "Do you two know who signed the dismissal for the Southeast Regional Inspector last month?" No answer. No interest in asking. But the way they shoved him into the back seat, it no longer felt like a routine arrest. It felt like the system had just documented its last error before someone rewrote the whole operating code. Inside the cruiser, no one spoke. Rojas kept smirking at the ID card. Miller drove like nothing had happened. Darius sat still, hands cuffed behind him, shoulder resting against the window, eyes focused forward. No resistance, no protest, just one strange thing. He tilted his head and gave the faintest nod, like a man confirming something quietly to himself. I gave them every chance to back down, and now it was his move. The steel bench in the holding cell was colder than Darius expected. Not from temperature, but from attitude. In the break room, Miller was laughing, coffee cup in hand, his voice echoing down the hallway. Guys like him always have a story. Probably thinks someone's flying down from the Pentagon to bail him out. At the desk, Rojas was typing up the report, the same recycled phrases flowing out like clockwork. Observed individual acting suspiciously near government facility. Non-compliant. In possession of questionable materials. Down the hall. The duty officer, Randy, glanced toward the cell. Darius sat upright, back straight, eyes fixed on the stainless steel door latch as if he was evaluating what, if anything in this place, was actually secure. "Has he asked for a phone call?" Randy asked. Rojas shrugged. "Said he wanted to call Marcus, personal driver." "You hear that? Let him," Randy replied, unsure, but seeing no reason to deny it. Rojas unlocked the cell and said through the bars, "You get one call. Make it quick." Darius gave a slight nod, as if the duration of the call had never been up to them. He dialed a single number. No hesitation, no searching. "Marcus, I'm at North Division. Come pick me up. Bring the badge." That was it. No one asked who Marcus was. No one cared to. Miller chuckled. "Another driver with credentials. Nothing." "Huh," Rojas smirked. "Bet we'll see a Bentley roll up for his ride to luxury prison." They had no idea what Marcus actually drove. Even less idea who might be sitting next to him. 40 minutes later, a sand-colored Chevrolet Suburban pulled up in front of the station. No sirens, no lights, no noise except for the crunch of tires on pavement. A tall man stepped out, dark blue suit, tapered haircut, black-rimmed glasses, quiet confidence. He walked straight to the front desk. "Marcus Stokes. Personal driver to Mr. Darius Langston. I need to see him right now." Randy raised an eyebrow. "Wait." Langston Marcus pulled out his wallet and slid a card across the desk. Randy's eyes locked onto the embossed lettering, Department of Justice. Authorized liaison, access law enforcement compliance, and oversight. For 2 seconds, Randy froze. He didn't call a superior. He didn't need to. He knew what to do. "Give me one moment." Miller wasn't as quick. Marcus, who he scoffed, stepping out with coffee in hand. "Let me guess, driver, lawyer, former college roommate." By the time he reached the desk, Marcus was already waiting. No smile, no threat. Just a sealed envelope handed over, silently. Miller opened it. His eyes scanned the first few lines. "Special oversight notification, unlawful detainment of federal subject under active DOJ, internal audit. Darius Langston, regional director, FRO." By the third line, Miller stopped breathing. For the first time in years, he had no smart reply, no way to spin it. Marcus spoke low, firm, but never cruel. "The man you cuffed has unrestricted access to every internal conduct file in the Jacksonville Police Department." No warrant needed, and this morning he continued. He had a meeting with the governor's office to launch a bias investigation into this division. And now he's sitting in your holding cell. Miller gave a crooked, nervous grin. "You threatening me? No." Marcus replied, "I'm giving you a head start before the Department of Justice calls you directly." Right on cue. The station phone rang. Randy picked it up, spoke briefly, then hung up. "Call from Eastern Regional Command," he said. "Immediate release order." The cell door opened. Darius rose without a word. Miller didn't meet his gaze. Rojas said nothing. Darius walked out, nodded once to Marcus, and the two men left. No escort, no shouting, no debates. Just silence, heavy and suffocating, settling over the station like a verdict no one wanted to say out loud. 3 days later, North Jacksonville Police Station looked just like it always did. The coffee machine still wheezed its slow brew. The old radio in Central Dispatch crackled with static, and overdue weekly reports were still stacked on the captain's desk. But no one said it aloud. Something was changing. Quietly, undeniably. Miller noticed first. He walked into the break room at 8:13 a.m., right on time. But instead of the usual chatter and inside jokes, the room went silent the moment he opened the door. No one made eye contact, just quick glances that turned away fast. Someone slammed a coffee cup lid too hard, spilling liquid over the counter. Another officer shut their notebook after barely opening it. Miller stood still, didn't say a word, but his heartbeat slowed. Rojas saw it later, more clearly. That afternoon, passing by the briefing room, he noticed Lieutenant Schaefer inside, talking to two individuals in dark civilian clothing. No name tags, dark button-downs. Professional, quiet. One of them opened a briefcase and placed a file on the table thick, bound with a blue fabric cord. Rojas raised a hand to knock, but before he touched the glass, all three people inside turned to look at him. At the exact same time. No words. He froze, turned away, didn't ask. That night, Miller got a call from Brian, his cousin, a cop in Tallahassee. "Hey, you weren't the one who cuffed that Langston guy last week. Were you?" Miller sat up. "What? Why, that name Langston, he's now at the top of the priority list at the State Oversight Office. Word is, he can open any conduct file, in any department. Jacksonville's up first." Miller forced a laugh. "Just a misunderstanding." He had an attitude. "I followed procedure." Brian paused. "Uh-huh. Well, just so you know, our precinct started re-reviewing rejected civilian complaints from the last 3 years today. Your name came up in a few traffic stops last fall." Miller said nothing, just listened to the hum of the AC behind him. The next morning, Captain Rowland called a surprise meeting. 4 people were in the room. Rowland, Miller, Rojas, and 2 strangers, one tall, white, salt and pepper hair, the other a black woman, slight build, steady voice. "This is the Special Review Unit from Faro Federal Ethics and Oversight," Rowland said, eyes not quite meeting theirs. The man opened his briefcase, set down a document. "Request for investigation under Article 14 of the Florida Law Enforcement Safety and Procedure Code. Subjects 2 field officers involved in unlawful detention of Faro Regional Director Darius Langston. Scope, all arrest records, civilian complaints, patrol reports, and conduct logs from 2018 to present." Miller swallowed hard. Rojas shifted in his seat. Neither spoke. The woman pulled a smaller file from her case, laid it gently in front of them. Gray cover, 1 line only, unresolved. "Civilian complaints, North JXPD Unit, C20C3. They'd thought the uniform protected them, that words like matched description, non-compliant, and suspicious behavior were shields. They'd gotten used to complaints going nowhere, body cams malfunctioning, and reports rewritten after shifts ended. But this time no one raised their voice. No one slammed a desk. There was only silence, and the presence of something colder, larger, and already taking notes. The hearing was held inside a modest government building next to Riverside Park. No banners, no reporters, no angry crowds. But inside, every seat was filled. No one wore a gun. No one wore a badge. Just people sitting upright, files open before them. And at the head of the table, Darius Langston. He didn't sit like a man preparing to punish. He sat like someone who'd heard too many justifications and was finally ready to hear something else, the truth, from the people who'd never been given the chance to speak. The first to take the microphone was Julian Ross, a 42-year-old black man, utility technician, arrested 3 years ago for improper lane usage on his drive home from a night shift. Julian stepped up, eyes scanning the room, as if still unsure he was actually allowed to stand there. 3 years ago, I got pulled over at Jefferson and 5th. I asked why. They said my taillight looked dim. I told them I'd get it fixed. I didn't argue. I just asked if they could issue a warning. Officer Miller said I was getting combative. Next thing I knew, I was pulled out of my car, searched, and taken to a holding lot. No ticket, no paperwork. He paused. I filed a complaint. No one ever called back. No one interrupted. No cross-examination. Just silence. Next came Eileen Montoya. 36, a Latina nurse. She was arrested on suspicion of transporting illegal goods after coming home from the market with a black plastic bag. I had trash bags in the back seat. I'd just bought supplies for my sister's restaurant. One of the bags spilled produce all over the floorboard. They asked me to open the bag. I did. But they still called backup. I was handcuffed in front of my house. My neighbors watched. I lost my job 3 weeks later because of the arrest report, even though no charges were ever filed. Her voice didn't break, but it trembled slightly as she said, "They didn't need to yell. They just didn't care to listen." Then came Arnold James, 62, veteran. "I once wore a uniform to defend freedom," he said. "But when I wore jeans and walked through a wealthy neighborhood to meet an old friend, I was told to prove I lived nearby. I said I didn't need to. I'm a citizen. They sat me on a stone bench near the playground for 2 hours. No apology. My daughter was 12. She hasn't spoken to her school resource officer since. No violence, no blood, no gunshots. But every voice carried like a weight, and the room grew heavier with each passing testimony. At the end of the table, Miller and Rojas sat quietly, hands on their knees, backs not touching the chairs. Their faces no longer wore confidence, but the shell-shocked stillness of men finally being seen by the very people they once believed would never be allowed in the room. When the last speaker stepped away, Darius didn't respond right away. He set his pen down, looked around the table. His eyes paused on Captain Rowland, then shifted to the Internal Affairs Inspector. "We're not here today to hear sensational stories," he said, his voice steady, not sharp. "We're here to determine whether a system granted power by the public is truly serving them or protecting itself." He opened a new folder, set it in the center of the table. 34 dismissed civilian reports over the past 4 years. Same officer, same language for cause suspicious behavior. Same outcome, no charges, no documentation, and the same rejection stamp, failure to cooperate. No one spoke. No one shifted. Because for the first time, the system wasn't shielding them, it was staring straight back at them. The conclusion of the hearing was never broadcast. No live stream, no press waiting outside. It arrived in a thin, sealed envelope, delivered quietly to every individual involved, from the captain to the disciplinary chief, to the 2 men who had once cuffed Darius Langston that Monday morning. Findings: violation of civilian engagement protocol, improper documentation of field behavior, failure to address civilian complaints recommended, disciplinary actions, indefinite suspension from field duties, mandatory psychological and professional behavior, reassessment, internal recognition of possible systemic bias, reopening of 11 dismissed cases from 2018 to 2022. Miller received his letter at home. He didn't open it right away. He just placed it on the kitchen table, poured a glass of bourbon, and stared out into the backyard, the same one where his son used to play, before heading off to police academy in another state. The first words Miller spoke in days were to his wife. "I don't think I'm a bad man, but I believed more in checkboxes on a form than in people's voices." Rojas didn't speak at all. He moved out, left his badge behind. No transfer request, no rebuttal. He wrote only one line on the internal exit form: I accept the reassessment. I won't return while I still see the world the same. Darius Langston gave no public statement after the hearing, no press conferences, no interviews. He simply sent a short memo to Regional Command. Bias isn't always born from malice. It grows when power gets used to being forgiven. Real change doesn't begin by punishing one person. It begins when we can say, "We were wrong," and we won't repeat it. 3 months later, the Jacksonville Police Department issued a new protocol. All officers were required to review the last 6 months of their own body cam footage to self-identify behavioral inconsistencies. Civilian engagement retraining was made mandatory for all field personnel, regardless of rank or years served. A small printed sign appeared near the coffee machine. "We're not hired to be right all the time. We're hired not to ignore when we're wrong." 1 year later, no one in the department spoke much about Darius Langston, and that was just fine. He didn't come to be a symbol. He didn't stay to be remembered. He came to do the job he was given, to remind those who wear the badge that they are not the law. They are its guardians. Justice doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes it's a quiet look, a slowly opened door, a forgotten case, reread with care. And when those once silenced finally speak, a system, if it still has hope, must know how to listen.